young people are usually expected to receive, to retain, and then to repeat the information. And all of these information clusters are then called knowledges, unfortunately.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Forum 2000 online chat. Today, we are recording from the Youth Working Group of the International Coalition for Democratic Renewal. My name is Hasler Iglesias. I'm from Caracas, Venezuela, and I'm a political leader here in my country. But today, we're going to talk with Jelena Milutinović. She is head of development in the Youth Initiative for Human Rights based in Serbia. And also, she's experienced human rights educator with 15 years of experience in civil society. The topic we're going to talk about today is the participation of youth in the current democratic struggles. So, well, to begin, I would like to introduce an issue that is that many times the young people are the ones who have more claims and are more have more grievances about the current situation. But at the same time, there is kind of a uncertainty or lack of confidence of the power that the youth have themselves. So I would like to ask Jelena about, and based on her experience and the history of Serbia, which, she can tell us more about that. How does this lack of confidence can be overcome among youth?
Thank you, Hasler. It's an honor to be here, and I'm very glad that we have this opportunity to chat and go over some highly important issues. To start with your question, I would definitely have to start by saying that youth confidence for me is a complex term. So I would say that it entitles both people's capabilities, young people's capabilities, their beliefs, but also some external supports for their efforts to be settled in kind of the socio-political context. So one of the main issues I would say here is the lack of young people trust in the system, in the government, in the institutions. So we have an educational system that is not allowing or initiating youth participation at different levels. So young people are usually expected to receive, to retain, and then to repeat the information. And all of these information clusters are then called knowledges, unfortunately. So maybe in addition, other social circles of young people are as well not that supportive toward empowering young people to be vocal, to be loud, to try different stuff that they could be mechanisms for change of a kind. So maybe real youth participation is not promoted as well as a family value, I would say. They are there to listen to the adults, not to cooperate with them in many cases. And they are left alone to play the role in institution statistics. So many research also claims that there is the research of the National Youth Council of Serbia done just recently, asking young people to state their trust in institutions, and the results are really discouraging. So I would say that young people, therefore, are not inclined to be empowered, to learn what is the privilege and what is the responsibility of being confident and being present and being engaged in society. Of course, I would be wrong not to mention that there are many bright examples, of course, among activists and human rights defenders and young politicians maybe as well. However, all of them, in my opinion, if I can offer my opinion here, would maybe say the same obstacles as I just described. So maybe they would also add that becoming a part of these changes and having this confidence in trying out different things to change, to bring out positive changes, is maybe coming from their personal agenda, from their personal motivation. And I'm afraid that the firstly system is failing, and then maybe we can come to the young people themselves and ask, okay, what do you perceive as a problem, and how we should tackle that. So it is highly complex, as I said. A lot of different points in the system is involved.
Yes, absolutely. And for example, for us in Venezuela, the example of Otpor in Serbia is kind of a example to follow. So I would like to know from you, a Serbian, they were young people in that moment facing a dictatorship, a very difficult dictatorship, and they were able to, well, overcome that dictatorship and set the first steps towards a democracy. So what do you think are the main lessons or learnings that young Serbians have that could with people in Venezuela, Cuba, Nicaragua, Myanmar, Belarus, for example, and different countries who are facing dictatorships nowadays?
Thank you, Hazar, for, I would say, rightfully explaining the situation. And North Korea is a very good example of how young people making a social movement can really oppose to the authorities and authoritative regimes. These maybe a little bit of context to offer here, that the offer was a group of young people made out of students who opposed the authoritarian regime a while back. And I would say they succeeded in a way that they brought up changes and they initiated changes. However, then it's the question, where are we now? Where are we today? They also, I would say, they had this influence in bringing the democracy to live in Serbia and trying to initiate different topics of democratic values across the society. However, today we now are in a situation that we have 10 years and a little bit longer, one party and one government, basically. So for me, it's also a matter of interest and power, and consequently all of the whys somebody or some group joins the movement. So I would say it is not without precedent that many movements ended up with lack of vision and lack of support, maybe precisely because lack of vision after lack of support, sorry. And demonstrations here usually are more ad hoc than carefully planned responses. So many of forefronters have no interest in leading afterwards, or maybe they don't even know how to lead. And these are also many of the things that are involved in the discussion when you now look back at what happened in 96 and 97 when Outpost started, and today, how we can engage today. And I think, I would say maybe today the fight is a little bit different. The demonstrations are not the only way. We have a lot of diverse democratic mechanisms, so we could use them as starting from the local councils and going to the, I don't know, maybe even elections. So young people have from what to learn, I would say, to conclude. But also, it's unfortunate that today we see a vast decline because of their economic situation, the vast decline in participation of young people, and vast decline in their interest in politics. Because politics is something that is perceived by young people as there and something that is not connected with their everyday lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Democracy is without doubt an everyday issue. It's never for granted, and we have to take care of it every day. And my next question is related to that, because we have seen a lot of youth participation, democratic causes around the world. But perhaps our generation are just mobilized by causes, by a specific cause. They mobilize today because, I don't know, of climate change, or because of this specific act or law or presidential decision or parliamentary decision. But afterwards, this cause disappears or is solved in the better case. This mobilization disappears, and the people are no longer involved in the public space, in public participation. How do you feel that this could be changed? Is every young activist called to be a politician, or how other ways or paths have the young people to really achieve their goals, and not just be part of a cause that can achieve something, but in the long term it could be diffused?
Well, that's a question for thinking, but now I would say, as I see it, it's two-channeled way. One is the way, systematic way, the institutions, the government, and everything that is, there are official kind of mechanisms. but also there is something more related toward maybe people's everyday lives, some informal and non-formal ways of participating, of engaging, of trying to be part of something. So for me, it's always being part of something. And I would say that the only maybe long-lasting and sustainable changes are brought up when young people or people in general are creating communities that are based on values, on similar principles. And when people come together and say, okay, this is the problem, and we think similarly about this, or rather we want to have a discussion about it, so let's try and plan the first step. So fortunately for us in Serbia at this moment, we have a very, let's say, alive and operating civil society sector. And it covers a different kind of, as you said, causes, and it covers different topics. So young people have really a vast, let's say, scale of opportunities to be involved in different kind of topics that can interest them, from green ideas to, reconciliation practices and, I don't know, peace, whatever. So for me, these are, maybe at the moment I would root for these non-formal and informal moments, but also, combine.
Yeah, no, I think it's very powerful. The idea of fighting and struggling into a community and forming and keeping a community, I think, well, it's very democratic, and also it's shown to be very effective. Here we have said that, the Venezuelan struggle has been long-lasting, and it's still going. And every day is not full of demonstrations and full of activity. We have had peaks and we have had valleys of public interest. And I believe that, our cause and any cause in the world needs, as you say, a community that can maintain the cause in the valleys. Exactly. When no one wants to talk about it, when no one's willing to go to the streets because of that, there is required a group of committed people that are doing the maintenance of the cause, setting the foundations for the following activities and the following demonstration or elections or founding of organizations or whatever the path they decide. But there needs to be a community to lead that and to forge that situation. So I think what you say is very powerful. And
I like what you said, the maintenance of it's nice. It's actually very precise for that.
Yeah, well, and to start to close this episode, I would like to talk about the pandemic. The pandemic has brought about different changes in the world. Authoritarianism, for example, has took advantage of the pandemic to control more the population and to advance in their projects that otherwise could be highly rejected. And they tried to use these quarantines and curfews to reduce public opinions and expression. But I would like to focus more on activists, on young people specifically. How does this pandemic has affected, in your view, the action, the activities of the activists of social organizations? Has it promoted some kind of space, or on the other hand, has it deterred the activities or the actions of the social society, or perhaps both? In which cases one, in which cases is the other? I would like to talk a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, on a positive note, I have to say that I'm glad to see that more focus is placed to young people in relation to the pandemic. So we have many researchers, we have many local funds, and etc. to help young people deal with the pandemic. But when it comes to the organizations and activists operating within the organization and activists in general, I think there was a learning curve, a really large challenge to be overcome in not just only adapting the activities done with young people, but also learning new ways how to use now this online world, this online space, reach out to young people and to involve them directly into the programs that are tailor-made for them. So many of the organization and many of activists, as we did as well in the youth initiative, brought maybe a bunch of new equipment to try and to create these precise tailor-made programs and maybe videos and try to speak the language of young people, which is for me very beautiful thing, because we now learn to give the young people the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the innovation and new technologies. So we also learned that we can just use our offices and whatever we have to just try and do something like we are now doing, just putting some words into video and casting out to the young people, because they do respond well to this. And what we saw maybe as a youth initiative, which is the okay example because we do have a vast activist group, is that the people, the number of people participating in our program has not declined. Whenever we created a new program just for them, but whenever we tried to adapt the program, which we did in person, then we came out to the little challenge of how to transfer that into the online system. So yeah, it was a challenge, but I think what it brought is that we learned how to do stuff without the things we had before, without traveling, without gathering together. We can be together, of course. For me, nothing can change the human connection. Nothing can change that. But of course, we are able to provide some quality, and that is how I think we should think as activists.
Yeah, wonderful. Absolutely. Creativity is a required ingredient of these times. And I think, well, you have done so for years in your organization, not only in Serbia, but also in other Eastern European countries.
Yes.
Well, to start closing, I would like to ask you for a few thoughts or a few reflection about the main topic. How is youth participation in democratic struggles in the world? What do you advise to young activists around the world? Or a closing message that you could give to the people who are listening to us?
Well, the only thing I could say to young people: be persistent and don't accept the no's. I mean, anybody telling you no, there is always a way. That's something I really believe in, not as a phrase, but as a way of thinking. Of course, you will not be able to do everything you wanted, but maybe some replicas and something else which is similar to that could be quite as satisfying as the thing you originally wanted to do. So yeah.
Right. And I would add a phrase that has taught a lot to me. That is that as young people, we have the opportunity to make mistakes without worries. We can make mistakes, and that it's not going to be the end of the world. And we are in the time to do that. So do not be scared to make mistakes and to try 100 times, be persistent, like you said. So I think these two messages could be wrap up all these conversations. So, well, thank you, Jelena, for your time. Thanks also Firm 2000 organization. And well, this was the Firm 2000 online chat done by the Youth Working Group of the International Coalition for Democratic Renewal. And well, keep looking the next episode of this series. Thank you.
Thank you, Katla.